How many of you have found out that it's easy to be effective while being at home? Now, I want a bit of interactivity in this session, so I want all of you to type yes if you think that you have found that it's easy to be effective while being at home. Let's see the chat history. So this is how we are going to be interacting. You are going to type whatever the answer. So who has found that it's easy to work effectively being at home? Let's see. All right, Senuri has found that it's easy. Prashant, Akila, thank you very much for being effective. How many of you have found out that it's not that easy to be effective being at home? How many of you have found that it's challenging to be effective at home? Let's see how many of you found out challenging. If you're finding it challenging, I want to type in challenging. All right, Amali says challenging. Hansa says challenging. Oh, yeah, we can understand, my friend. And Chandima says challenge. Indika says challenge. Chaturanga says challenging. Yeah. So a lot of people like you and me, we have found that it's a challenging period. We understand it's not only for us, but for the entire world that it's a challenging period. I don't need to go on telling how much challenging or what are the negative circumstances of this event is. From early morning to the end of the day, the only word that we are hearing most of the time is negativity. But did you find out for just 1 second, probably this is the best time that we can test our own positivity, how much you can impress other people, how much you can be effective, and how much you can be positive, how much you can help other people to be the better version of themselves. So thank you very much, HR, and every one of you for being here in this one hour, because you all took a decision while you have a lot of other work. Remember this. You could have been somewhere else. You could have been working with your, whatever the projects. You could have been with your loved ones, at your family. You could have been with something else, but you decided that you're going to come here and you're going to spend this 1 hour. This is an investment on yourself. And thank you very much for spending this time as an investment to yourself. Thank you very much for promoting positivity within you and within your community. And I'm pretty sure this investment will be worthwhile, and from my commitment, from my responsibility that I have, I will take 150% of my commitment to give you the best of the best result that I am capable of. Having said that, now we were talking about effectiveness of teleconferencing. Now, effectiveness, efficiency, these are words that people generally use to talk about work. Especially if you are MBA type, you might have heard effectiveness and efficiency so often. The times that you are using or doing your MBA or any other examination or any other work, efficiency and effectiveness are the words that you hear a lot. But I have used purposefully the word effectiveness. Now, what is effectiveness? Why do we call it effective teleconferencing but not efficient teleconferencing? Now, there are different 101 definitions what effectiveness and efficiency is, but I like simplicity. I totally like simplicity. Simplicity is the way things get into action. You know, some people say complexity adds a lot of problems and the results does not come. The result is the answer. Now, what means to me effectiveness is getting the intended results done. So this picture might be familiar to some of you, and to some of you, you are waiting to see this picture pretty soon. How many of you have already seen this picture? If you have seen this picture already, type yes. Let's see. Brilliant. Good. Most of you. So the moment I asked the question, Dulika left the meeting. I don't know why. Thank you, Kusal. Thank you, Hansa. Thank you, Sanjani. Thank you, Dilani. Thank you for interacting and being this awesome audience. Now, for me, effectiveness means pretty simple. Getting the intended results. It's not getting any result. It's getting the intended result. Getting the result that is needed. So what I simply mean by effectiveness, effective teleconferencing is through teleconferencing, how do you get the intended result? How do you make sure you achieve results that are needed? Needed by whom? Needed by you, or needed by any other party. It can be the company, it can be your family, it can be your customers, it can be anyone. Whatever the intended result, if you are capable of achieving that, that will be effective teleconferencing. So the objective of today's meeting is pretty simple. How can teleconferencing help you to achieve what you do in the next level, as well as how can you achieve the intended results being at home, and how can you breed positivity, and also how can you help others to achieve and be the best version of yourself. Now, thank you very much for being in this wonderful and brilliant audience. And what we are going to do right now is, now there are multiple ways how you can achieve teleconferencing. Example is that most of the time we have used teleconferencing at office or any other work. Most of the times we have used these three types of teleconferencing. Either it's just audio only teleconferencing, or it can be audio plus content. What I mean by content is it can be emails, it can be sharing documents, and it can be sharing any other forms of media. And then there's another interesting type of teleconference, which is video plus content, which is teleconferencing, in fact, which is video teleconferencing, which you have the real video presence. Now, let me ask you a question before going forward. Obviously, I don't need to ask this question. Out of these three things, the third one, which is the video plus content, is going to be the most effective form of video plus content is going to be the most effective form, so the most effective form of conferencing. Now, did you know that video plus content, when you use video plus content for teleconferencing, that it's 34 times effective? Did you know that? This research comes from Harvard Business Review. So Harvard Business Review tells that when you use video teleconferencing for communication in a chaotic situation, especially, it's 34 times powerful and effective. So let me, now what's the meaning of this? Now here's the meaning. Let me tell you something happened to me recently. Now, there was a certain misconception between me and one of my clients, and we were writing emails here and there. So I was writing an email, and then the client will reply to me saying that it's not what she wants, and then I will reply back, and she will reply back, and there will be 101 replies, 101 emails going on here and there. And only after a long type of set of emails, we will find out, oh, right, this is what she wants. But if I go to a meeting, especially if it is a face-to-face meeting where we see the people, then just within 5 minutes, the problem will be solved. How many of you can relate to this? If you have had this experience where you had to spend a lot of time understanding some other person's intention, but you could have solved that problem in a very small time when you went to that person, face-to-face meeting, but solve the problem in a jiffy. How many of you can relate to that? If you can relate to that, type I. Type I if you can relate to this. How many of you have solved the problem in a jiffy, in very quick time, when you went to a face-to-face meeting? Thank you very much for being this much interactive. Thank you. I love you all, this audience. Brilliant. Now, what you're saying is true. In fact, if you are going for a video teleconferencing, it's going to give you the best sort of results. Now, I understand some of the circumstances will not allow you to go into face-to-face communications, but remember this: if you want results, remember this. This is a secret. If you want results, if you want things to happen, my friends, video teleconferencing is the ultimate helper, ultimate friend that's going to help you. So listen to me, my friends. Now I have turned off my video, and the impression you have while I have turned off my video and when I turned on my video are two different things. Why? Here's the secret. The secret is enormously simple. It's enormously simple. The simplest form of the secret is non-verbal communications. Now, here's the secret. When people talk, when people write emails, when people send you WhatsApp messages, when people send you Skype messages, they do not write their real intention. Because when people are talking, only 7% comes through words, but 93% comes through non-verbal communication. How much is non-verbal communication? I want you to type 93%. I want you to type that. I want you to put that message into your bloodstream. It's 93% non-verbal communication. Brilliant. Thank you very much. 93% non-verbal communication. So if you're using video teleconferencing, you're able to see that 93% of the message. So if I don't like you, but if I'm saying thank you, you will immediately see that I'm not meaning what I'm saying. You will immediately see that my face and my words and my heart does not match. That's the power of video teleconferencing. But if you are going for audio only teleconferencing, the numbers change. Then the power of your voice comes to 84%, which means the way you say it is 84% important, and the words or the content is going to be 16% important. So audio only communication, remember this, audio only communication, it's going to be 16% important. What you say, that's your words, and 84% importance comes from the way you say it, the words and the rest of the things. It's big. But if you are using face-to-face communication, only 7% is your content or your words. 93% is your non-verbal communications. If you want to be pretty specific, 39% is your voice and 55% is your body language. And that's why I say, if you can go, please use video teleconferencing, because through video teleconferencing, you are going to achieve results. This comes from practice. This comes from my personal experience. This comes from your personal experience. You will agree with me 110% that video teleconferencing works. Now, let me ask you a simple question. Now, we understand that talking in a remote setup is kind of challenging. See, I'm talking in front of my computer. I'm talking to my laptop camera, and I don't have a physical presence. I don't see whether you are there or not, but I trust you. But it's a different process. But let me ask you a simple question. Comparing audio teleconferencing versus video teleconferencing, why do you think video teleconferencing would be much more effective than audio teleconferencing? Let me hear from you. Why do you think video teleconferencing is much more effective? Why do you think? Let me hear from some of you. Why do you think video teleconferencing is much more effective than any other forms of teleconferencing? Let me see what you think before moving forward. Thank you. It's facial expression. Chandima says it's facial expressions. Thank you very much. Yes, absolutely correct. You can see the facial expressions and you can see the emotions. I love that word, emotions. I love that word. You can see really what my emotions are. And Mariam says we can see the facial expression and the authenticity. I like that word, authenticity. Interactivity. Yes, Senuri. Interactivity is one word, but if you really want, you can take the interactivity in other forms. See, at the moment I'm asking you to type. That's one way I'm keeping the interactivity, non-verbal expressions. Thank you, Hansa. Thank you very much for being interactive. Now, let me summarize these entire ideas that, thank you, Indika, and every one of you are bringing. Number one thing that I believe video teleconferencing is going to add you value is because it's going to add you trust and influence. Trust and influence are pretty much everything, isn't it? At the end of this session, I'm going to teach you some of the tips how you can add, how can you project trustworthiness over your remote teleconferencing call. So stay tuned. Before we wind up this session, I'm going to teach you some of the tips and tricks that I have learned personally on how you can project trustworthiness over a teleconferencing call. Brilliant. And then number two is understanding hidden meanings. Now, I learned about one month ago from Heshan that Heshan received a particular email from one of his clients where the client has addressed his team saying, "Hello, Heshan." At the end of the salutation, there was an exclamation mark. So it was "Hello, Heshan," an exclamation mark. Now, what does exclamation mark means to you? Is it happiness? Is it joy? Is it threat? Is it fear? Or is it something else? Now, in your context, exclamation mark right at the end of your name would mean difference. To me, it feels like threatening. So it feels like, hello, Thilina. So the client is threatening me that I have not done something good. So they were under the impression that the client is not that happy. But later found out that the client was in fact happy, because in client's context, exclamation mark was happiness and joy. Now, these kind of misconceptions will not happen if you go to a remote teleconferencing. So remote teleconferencing is going to add you value by letting you understand hidden meanings if there are any. And the other one is, you like to work with people, isn't it? Now, we understand we are working with data science, we are working with machine learning, we are working with artificial agents, we are working with bots, we are talking and we are chatting with artificial bots, and we are creating all this brilliant technology. But after all, remember this: people like to interact with people. People like to work with people. People like to do business with people. That's the ultimate truth. And when you work over someone, when you work with someone with teleconferencing, they like you more because they are interacting with another person. You understand their feelings, you understand their emotions, you understand what they are meaning, and they feel like liking you more. And that's another advanced way why teleconferencing is much more effective and going to add you value. And the final thing that I believe, that it's going to give you a natural opportunity to build rapport. Now, what's rapport? We are going to talk to you at the end of this session. What is rapport and how do you build rapport with your audience? Now, so far we have talked why teleconferencing is going to be important. How many of you are in this? How many of you are excited about this rest of the 30 minutes? And how many of you are excited to learn these tools and techniques and tips? How many of you are excited? If you are excited, type I in the chat box. Thank you. Thank you for interacting. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You are awesome. I see thunderous flow of river of answers. That's absolutely brilliant. Now, you and me, we understand that there are 101 tools for remote teleconferencing. You use Zoom, you use Google Hangouts, you use Google, YouTube, you use 101 tools. Now, what's the best tool to use? Now, you being in the technical community, you understand this. Now, I've done this kind of training to outside people, non-tech people. And the first question they ask is, they'll tell me what's the tool to use, and they think it's the finish of the game. But you and me understand something important that those people do not understand. And that is this: the key of technology. We don't focus on tools, but we focus on fundamentals, isn't it? You and me, we understand that fundamentals are much more important than certain technologies. And if we focus on technologies, it's like to be just like waves of the ocean. What about the waves of the ocean? They will come today and they will go back. They will come and they will go back. So if you focus on one tool, if you focus on one technology, you can survive for the day, but tomorrow you'll be out of the game. So what I want you to do right here in this 30 minutes is grasp the fundamentals that we are talking in. That's even my objective. We are not going to focus much on technology. We are going to see the fundamentals, the psychology of remote teleconferencing. How many of you like that? If you like that idea, type I in the chat box. Let's see how many of you like that idea of focusing on fundamentals. Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your interactivity. Right. Now, if I capture this entire presentation in just one word, if I want to summarize this entire presentation in just one word of teleconferencing, to be effective in teleconferencing, it can be your work-related teleconferencing or your family-related call or any sort of teleconferencing. Now, when I say teleconferencing, it's not just Google Hangouts that you do with your colleagues. It's not just the stand-up meetings. It's not just the weekly meetings. It's not just the morning calls, but it can be a telephone call to your fiance. It can be a telephone call to your loved ones who are there locked up. This is related to that. It can be any sorts of teleconferencing. And in all sort of teleconferencing, the fundamental building block is empathy. Empathy. Now, empathy can mean different things to different people. Now, in the form of teleconferencing, what I have learned and what I have experienced as empathy is pretty simple. It's that mantra called audience is key. Now, if you have that mantra inside you, audience is key, that is empathy in this context. Whatever you do in teleconferencing should be with the idea that audience is key. Audience is key, audience is key, audience is key. That should be your mantra. So what your background looks like, what your audio equipment looks like, whether you are prepared or not, whether there's an agenda or not, whether there's a feedback form or not, whether you can be heard or not, whether there's presentation slides are ready or not, whether you look good or not, whether your beard is shaved or not, is going to depend on your audience. Everything that you do should be with the idea of audience is key. So the mantra of teleconferencing, ladies and gentlemen, is audience is key. I want you to say that. I know you are at home. I know you're at home with your loved ones, but I want you to do this right now with me. I want you to do this right now with me. Put your hands on your shoulders, on your here, there, temples, and I want you to say, audience is key. I want you to say that with me. Audience is key. Come on. It's okay if people are looking at you, if your fiance, if your parents, if your wife. I'm back. Please type yes if you can hear me. Please type yes if you can still hear me. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. Thank you so much for being there for me. It's pretty challenging over here. Just before the curfew, I came home at Maunalla. Now, I'll be honest with you. This is the scenario here. If I want to have this kind of a conference call, I have to get to the top of my house and to seek for good signal. This is the scenario here. So let me share my screen again. Thank you for being there for me, and thank you for understanding the situation. Now, these kind of things can happen when you are presenting, isn't it? All right, now let's see whether you can still see my presentation slides. If you can still see my presentation slide, please type yes. All right, brilliant. Thank you, Tavisha, and thank you, everyone. All right, we were talking about the mantra of teleconferencing, and just to remember what the mantra of teleconferencing is, I want you to type the mantra of teleconferencing. The mantra of teleconferencing is audience is key. I want you to type that in, AIK. Just type it for me, just to see the internet connection is brilliant. AIK. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we understand that audience is key, and that's going to be our mantra. Now there are certain etiquettes that you should be following when you are working with teleconferencing. There are certain etiquettes, what to do and what not to do. Now, I can't stress enough the importance of etiquettes. In any forms of communication, etiquettes are important. Now, let me give you a scenario. Since you are a so much interactive audience, let me ask you a simple question. I like to segregate any form of teleconferencing into three parts: before the meeting, during the meeting, and after the meeting. Can I hear from some of you what are the best practices or etiquettes just before starting a teleconferencing session? Can I come up with some of the answers? Before starting a meeting, what are the best practices? What are the etiquettes to follow before starting a meeting? Imagine you are the host of the meeting. Tell me what are some of the brilliant and things to remember, and what is the etiquettes. Check the connections and the gear. Thank you. I think Tiwanka, you just pointed out to me. Thank you very much, buddy. And yeah, Tavisha even mentioned that it checked the audio. Yeah, connectivity is pretty important. See what happened to me. Anyway, the technology is pretty much risky. It can come and go. So remember that. Amali says purpose of the meeting and the agenda. Now, I'd like to capture that idea. Thank you, Amali, for that important point. Now, when I get meeting invites, very seldom I would see what this meeting is about. Sometimes I just see meeting invites in Google Hangout saying meeting. The agenda is not there, the objective is not there, and I don't understand what this meeting is about. So I don't know whether this is a meeting to attend or not. Even if it is a meeting to attend, I don't know whether it's necessary. I need to be there. So the agenda is very important. Thank you for bringing that up. You don't need to go to a very detailed and perfect, 100% perfect agenda, but at the Google Hangouts, if you use Google Hangouts, just type it in what we will be covering for this 1 hour meeting. This is what we are going to do. This is what we are going to do. And at the end, we are going to take the decision. That's all. And when you do that, number one, as the host, you get a feeling what you are going to do. And at the end, people like to understand what this is all about. So the first thing first is, before the meeting, just like you have already mentioned, do research about the audience and remember to set out an agenda. It doesn't need to be a perfect agenda or 100% perfectly clear agenda. No, just type it in. Just put your ideas, just pour your ideas into Google Hangouts, that particular pane. But if you can be brilliant, if you can be perfect in your agenda, kudos to that. Please do that. And from today onwards, let's strive hard to add agenda or the objective inside the description, so people will find that you are really professional. Now, it's okay if your people do not read that. That's okay, because this is the way that you can tell about your own ethics, your own professionalism. It's a way that you project your own professionalism to others. So that's before the meeting. During the meeting, during teleconferencing, what are some of the best practices? What are some of the etiquettes to follow during teleconferencing? Let's hear from some of you. What do you think are the best practices? What do you think are the nice to have etiquettes during a teleconferencing conference? Smile often. All right. If you are on video, yes, you have to show that your emotions. See, smiling is one way. I agree with you, Anka. Smiling is one way to capture the attention of other people. So yes, you can smile often. Greet at the beginning, Kanishka says. Yes, you can greet at the beginning, but different speakers will have different ways. Now, if you remember how I started the meeting, it's my way. I generally don't greet people. I like to ask questions. That's my way of getting attention of people. But different people have different ways. But I have found out asking questions is going to be a brilliant way to capture attention. Address everyone while presenting. Absolutely correct, Ladushan. So you have to talk to everyone. Everyone should be captured. Now, let me talk just 1 minute on that point, Ladushan's point, addressing to everyone. If you're asking a question, you have to remember to address everyone. For example, if you can remember the question that I asked at the beginning, I actually asked 2 questions. The first question that I asked is, how many of you found that it's easy to be effective at home? And the second question that I asked was, how many of you find that it's difficult to be effective at home? Which means those 2 questions addressed to the entire audience. At the end of those 2 questions, the entire audience is captured. The point is, at the very beginning itself, if it is especially if it is a remote teleconferencing, remember this is a trick. If it is a teleconferencing, at the very beginning, try to address the entire bunch of your audience. Either you are asking a question or greeting or whatever the way that you prefer. It can be a joke, it can be a humorous point, it can be anything, but don't talk to a selected audience. Just address everyone. Address entire audience. Thank you, Ladushan, for bringing that audience. You have to break the ice. Thank you, Nisala. And you have to maintain your status. Especially if you are an audience member, you know the drill. You have to keep your microphones muted. Now, these are the difficult times. In fact, I have attended a lot of non-office related teleconference calls within these days. Now, this is what happens. All of a sudden, during the meeting, I hear, do you want tea? What do you want for dinner? Roti or kottu? These kind of things are happening these days. because you are at home, you are the comfort of your homes, and your family members don't understand that you are in an important teleconferencing meeting, and all of a sudden all these problems start to happen. So it's very important, if you are an audience member, not to be a distress to the person who is talking. Now, let me ask you a question. How many of you have found out these kind of annoying background noises? If you have heard these kind of background noises while you are in a teleconferencing call, type I. Let's see how many of you have heard these kind of noises and how many of you have. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for being honest here. So you might have heard your choom pang van starts honking and your child starts crying and all this nonsense starts happening. You can't call that nonsense. Unfortunately, if you are the host and if you have some things that you can't control, that's the end of the discussion. But if you are the audience member, this is something that you have control. After all, my friends, if you are the host, sometimes you have to understand the situation, but go to the best spot where you have the where you can give the best of the best to your audience. Why? Because of the mantra. Audience is key. You have to go and select to the best of the best place because your audience is key. That's your secret. That's your magic. Thank you for being there. Now that's the etiquette during the meeting. What about the end of the meeting? When you finish the meeting, tell me, what are the certain things that you would like to do or like to see at the end of any type of remote teleconferencing? What are the best etiquettes? What are the best practices you'd like to see or you'd like to follow? Thank people. Yeah, Upeksha says, thank people who joins. Brilliant. You can thank people, but even after the meeting, what should you do? See, now imagine the meeting is finished. Meeting is finished. Now what should you do? Thanking people, make sure meeting objectives are met. Brilliant. You have to make sure the meeting objectives are met, which means summarizing, attention, or the conclusion should be there. Brilliant. And follow-ups, action items. That's true. We have to have minutes, MOM, email, the summary, action items. If you are the host, you have to make sure that you talk to people and getting things done. Remember, we are talking about effective teleconferencing. Effectiveness means getting the jobs done, getting the intended purpose achieved. So if you're the host, it's your responsibility to make sure the intended purpose is achieved. In order to make sure the intended purpose is achieved, if you have to send a meeting minute, do that. If you have to thank the people, do that. In order to make sure the intended purpose is achieved, if you want to talk to them separately, personally, do that. And if you want to send an email to them personally, do that. Whatever the situation is, in order to make sure your audience is key, and also in order to make sure the results are achieved, make sure that you follow the etiquettes at the end of the meeting. Now, let me add some of the etiquettes that I find challenging especially during teleconferencing. Number one is you have to make sure, if you are on your cameras, not to have very complex colors of clothes, especially if you are video conferencing. Do not use very complex colored, textured clothes because your cameras will not capture that. And especially try to have a contrasting background versus foreground if you are using video teleconferencing. And remember this, I have seen this number of times. If you're the host, remember this, my friends, if you're the host, you will be the last person to leave the meeting. If you're the host, you will not be the first person to leave the meeting. You will be the last person to leave the meeting. People would like to say thank you. People would like to say, do multiple things. People would have last minute questions. They may be waiting for someone else to go out of the meeting to ask the question. So you will be the last person to go out of the meeting if you are the host. Those are some of the simple etiquettes to follow when you are doing a teleconferencing. Now, thank you. Now, here for the next 20 minutes, what we are going to talk is a very important section. I'm going to teach you, I'm going to give you a strategy for connecting with people over teleconferencing especially. Now, these are the things that I have learned from my trainings from world-class trainers. This strategy has worked for me, especially during physical communications and also remote teleconferencing. I'm teaching to some of the people remotely, and this has worked for me to connect with my audience. Even if you are physically talking, or even if you are remotely talking, the principles are same. So these principles are same if you are working either remotely or physically. So this is true. This strategy that I'm going to share is true for physical meetings as well as for teleconferencing. It all starts with predicates. We'll dig very quickly what predicates means. And number 2 is your tonality, and number 3 is your physiology. It's not psychology, it's physiology. So these 3 things are pretty important: your predicates, your tonality, and your physiology. And these 3 things sit on top of a very important section which I call energy, your energy. And it all starts with energy, my friends. It all starts with energy. Now let me tell you a story that I learned the importance of energy. Now, once I had to do a lecture at University of Rajarata. It was a full day lecture, starting from 9 a.m. going until 5 or 6 p.m. So it was like 9 hours stretch long lecture. I was thinking that I am a brilliant speaker. I can do wonders and I can do magic, and I can just keep this entire audience up all these 9 hours. And I started doing my magic and doing the lecture, and suddenly I found out after 30 minutes, entire class, 80 people, all the people are sleeping. They are not focusing, they are not listening, they are not paying attention, and they are not there. I was thinking that I could just keep this entire audience rocking for this entire 9 hours, but just within 30 minutes, I found out the entire audience is not there. They are gone. So what did I do? Well, at that day, I didn't know what to do, to be honest. So I did something important that I could do at that point. I phoned one of my friend who was a good speaker, and I told my friend, bro, I'm facing this kind of scenario. I'm trying to talk to these people, but these people have lost interest. Is it their fault or is it my fault? And my friend said something important. Bro, remember, your audience's energy is the mirror of your energy. Remember this. Your audience's energy is the mirror of your energy. So if you are the host of a meeting, ladies and gentlemen, your audience's energy is going to be a mirror of your energy. So if you want to be a lethargic person, if you are not full of energy, don't expect your audience to be energetic. Period. If you want your audience to be energetic, you have to be energetic. In speakers form, we say if you want your audience to jump, you have to jump first. If you want your audience to be energetic, you have to be energetic first. That's why I say the entire secret of connecting with your audience starts with energy. I can't stress enough the importance of energy. Energy is the key. Your mantra of connecting with audience members through teleconferencing starts with your energy. Energy is going to be key. Now, look at this session. Look at this scenario. Now, we all understand these 2 pictures, isn't it? Now, the moment, since we are mostly working with technology, the moment we find out that we are focused on to some of the thing that is happening in the screen, we tend to go towards the screen and bend our neck and bend our back. Now, we understand that's bad, but especially if you are using teleconferencing, this is going to be super, super bad. Why? Now, this is the simplest reason. The moment your neck is bent and your chest is pressured, 2 things are going to happen, my friends. This first picture is going to put too much stress onto your vocal cords and to your diaphragm. Diaphragm is a muscle that is just beneath your lungs, which is going to help your breathing pattern. And if you are speaking over teleconferencing, this posture, the first posture is going to add too much pressure onto your vocal cords and to your diaphragm. So if you are anyway find that you are bending down your body, let's not do that. Because remember, your mantra is audience is key. If you want your audience to be perfectly with you, if you want to connect with your audience over teleconferencing, remember, we have to be purposefully deciding our physiology. So if you are working like in the picture number one, we are going to put a question mark on your physiology. The moment your physiology is wrong, your confidence levels goes down. Trust me in this. The moment your physiology goes down, your confidence level goes down. And when your confidence level goes down, your entire audience can feel that. Remember this, can feel that. You can be a CEO of a company. You can be a big boss of a company. But if your self-confidence is low, remember this, every audience member can feel that. So the first point is you have to set your physiology correct. That's number one. If you do not have your physiology correct, that's going to be a big problem. Because your audience is going to feel that. Let's do something fun now. I understand you are at home and you are having fun, and you are with your family, and sometimes you may be slouching down your couch, you may be joining this call from your mobile phones, bending down and sleeping on the bed. That's fine. So let's do something fun right now. I want you to purposefully go to this pose. Look at this picture. I want you to purposefully go to that pose and type done on the chat box if you are on that pose. Go to that pose intentionally and type done. Go to that pose. Slouch. All right. Good. Thank you. Everyone loves that pose. Brilliant. Superb. Brilliant. So stay there for a while. Don't sleep. Be with me. Listen to me carefully. And the moment I say done, you're going to change your posture purposefully to this. All right, done. Change your posture to like Obama. Change your posture. And if you're done, type done. Brilliant. Now, we are going to do some fun, right? Listen to me very carefully. I'm going to say switch, and you are going to switch to the picture that I'm showing. Ready? If you are ready, type ready. If you are ready, type ready. Brilliant. All right, here we go. Switch to this photo. Switch. All right. Thank you. Back again. Switch to this. Switch to Obama. Switch. Purposefully switch. All right. Switch back. Switch back to the initial version. Switch back. Thank you. And switch back to Obama. All right. Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. In which posture did you feel like you are going to win the entire world? In which posture did you feel like you are more confident in presenting? In which posture did you find that you are ready to do something? In which, all right, Samira says it's the first one. All right, thank you for being honest. Anyway, the majority says, except Samira, that it's Obama's posture. Thank you very much, Samira, for being attentive and for bringing energy to this entire audience. Thank you. Yeah, Mayur is saying Samira is trying to win something else. Yeah, we understand what Samira is trying to win. That's okay. We are talking about audience. So if you're talking about winning your audience, obviously physiology is going to matter. So the point is, it's okay if your audience cannot see you, but you have to make sure that your physiology is correct. Why? Remember our mantra. What's our mantra? I want you to type in our mantra. Type in your mantra. What's our mantra? What's our mantra in teleconferencing? What's our mantra? AIK. Thank you. That's why we have to make sure our physiology is correct. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Now, let me ask for your permission. We have almost 5 minutes now. Do I have your permission to take extra 10 minutes? Brilliant. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for giving me your permission. Brilliant. So we have already talked about the importance of physiology. Remember, it's not psychology, it's physiology. This is something, again, when it comes to physiology, this is called power postures. In speaking, there's something called power postures. Let me show that by turning on my video for just 1 minute. I hope my internet connection will just be okay with me if I turn on my videos. Right, this is there's something called power postures. Now, every time you're speaking, your hands, your gestures are going to be extremely important. But especially if you're using remote teleconferencing, your gestures should be up above. This is what we generally say power postures. Power gestures, sorry, gestures. Gestures which are above your waist level are going to add value. So you can use gestures, power gestures, to talk, to describe something. You can say the world is big, this investment is small. The indica can say your percentage cut of the salary is pretty small. That's descriptive gesture. And you can say the benefits are pretty large. That's descriptive gesture. And you can emphasize something like this. You can do this, finish the meeting, or finish the meeting on time. You can emphasize, you can use gestures. But remember, in teleconferencing, your natural gestures are not going to add value. What's going to add value is your power gestures, gestures which are above your waist level. So gestures or power gestures are going to add value. Remember, power gestures are important. And I want you to type in the chat box, power gestures work. Power gestures work. All right, thank you very much. Power gestures work. Thank you. Now, from that, we are going to learn something pretty important, and that is voice, vocal variety. Now, there are certain ways that you can capture the attention of your audience or win your audience over teleconferencing. The most important fact is your voice. In fact, there are certain things called vocal exercises. Now, as a speaker, I personally do these vocal exercises before starting any presentation. Now, since the time doesn't allow us to do, we will skip the vocal exercises for this moment. But let me quickly give you a simple technique when you want to start a teleconferencing. This is before the meeting. Before the meeting, at least do this. Take a deep breath and exhale with a deep thundering sound. Like that. Deep inhale and exhale with deep sound. Do that like 3-4 times and you will be ready with your sound, because your voice needs to be ready. Your voice needs to be pretty ready before starting a meeting, because your voice is going to add value. Remember, we are talking about winning your audience, and if you want to win your audience, your voice is going to be important, especially in a situation like this where you are talking and you are not visible. Your voice is going to be 84% important. How you are going to say something, your voice is going to be 84%. So if you want to make sure that your voice is there, your audio is good, remember, you have to make sure that your voice is ready. So inhale and exhale before the meeting. There are multiple exercises. You can just simply work on those exercises. And if time permits, let's do something pretty quickly on these vocal exercises at the end. Now, here's a tip for you, vocal variety. Now, these are some of the things absolutely you can use during a meeting. Number one is the pace. Now, you can talk pretty fast during a meeting, or you can talk pretty slow during a meeting. Sometimes you don't have to talk so fast. Sometimes it's okay to go slow. And did you know that sometimes silence is going to add value? Silence is a great tool when it comes to teleconferencing to capture the attention. So talking fast and talking slow should be intentional. Remember the word intentional. This is just like driving your vehicle. At the beginning, my friends, at the beginning, remember, at the beginning when we are starting to drive, we were changing the gears intentionally, isn't it? We were changing to the first gear to the second gear intentionally. Just like this, these vocal variety ideas that I'm going to share, you're going to you're going to do intentionally. So pace, how fast you are speaking or how slow you are speaking, is going to be intentional. And number two is pitch. Now look at this. Look at this example. Imagine you are asking a question that you want to ask where your keys are from your wife, right? Number one, you can ask something like this: where are my keys? Number two, you can ask from him, you can ask from her, honey, where are my keys? So two things. The first thing was, where are my keys? High pitch. The second one is, honey, where are my keys? Okay, let me ask you a question. In which sentence, first one or the second one, do you think I will miss my dinner? First one or the second one? Let me hear from you. In which sentence do you think that I would lose my dinner? Brilliant. Yeah, as you said, first one, I'm going to definitely lose my dinner. So you do not need to raise your pitch every time during a conversation. You can change your pitch accordingly. Having said that, remember this. I'm going to share you. I said at the beginning that I'm going to share you a tip on how to share or project trustworthiness. Your trustworthiness is going to relate to your pitch. I'm going to share that in a minute. Number three is the power that you are going to project when you are talking. Power is how loud or how soft. You can sometimes go loud and emphasize a point, or you can go soft. And the next thing is prosody. Prosody is, have you heard, have you listened to people who talks just on monotone? Now, when I was at my university, I was pretty known for sleeping in the lectures. I was so known for sleeping in the lectures. Why? I found that many lecturers, with all due respect to all the lecturers, that most of the lecturers were monotonic. And monotonic speakers are, well, pretty difficult to listen to. So my attention will go slow. How many of you find it's difficult to listen to monotonic speakers? How many of you find that it's difficult to listen to monotonic speakers? Type I if you find that it's difficult to listen to monotonic speakers. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for being honest. It's difficult, or it's not that easy to listen to monotonic speakers. So prosody is about your tone. How can you change your tone? So I was talking that your way of projecting trustworthiness, your trustworthiness is going to completely depend on your pitch and your prosody. Stay tuned. In just 1 minute, I'm going to share you how to project trustworthiness. And number three, this is going to be really important: exaggeration. Now, let's be honest. In teleconferencing, sometimes you have to exaggerate some of the things, or exaggerate some of the things. Sometimes you can say the queue in the food city was so long, and it will not actually make that visual presentation in the heads. But if you say the queue in the food city was so long, I understand that it's exaggeration, but well, sometimes a little exaggeration will help you to achieve the intended purpose. So exaggeration is needed. You can say a long way from the beach, a long way from the beach. Or you can say the long way from the beach. Or you can say the pizza was delicious. After all, now I can say, let's take something related. During the curfew time, the sound of the chumpang van is going to be like honey to us, and that bread is going to be delicious. Instead of saying that, you can say, during this curfew time, the sound of the chumpang man is going to be like honey in the ears, and that bread is going to be delicious. It's overexciting, it's exaggeration, but it helps to convey a certain message. It helps to give that idea to the audience. So sometimes this helps. And the final one is called inflection. Inflection is how do you going to end the presentation, or how do you are going to end the sentence, whether you are going to go up, go down, go up, or go down. For example, uh, let's take a simple example like I love you. I love you is a sentence. But if I ask you something like this, I love you, that's called upward inflection. At the end, I'm going up, upward inflection. I love you, that's upward inflection. Now remember this, if you make upward inflection, it is posed like a question. So if you pose a question with upward inflection, it's going to be a question. Now there are certain people who talk every time with upward inflection. Do you want more time? How are you saying that you want to have 2 weeks in this presentation? You want 2 weeks for this presentation? Upward inflection, it posed like a question. But in the same time, if you go downward inflection, changing the tone at the end to downward inflection, you want 2 weeks. I love you. You want more time for the presentation. That's downward inflection. And when you make downward inflection, it feels like a command to your audience. So upward inflection is questions, downward inflection is commands. So if you say I love you, it's a question. If you say I love you, downward inflection is a command. And your audience or your fiance is not going to say I love you back. But a sentence like I love you, it's just a statement. So it's going to be negative inflection. I love you is a negative inflection. No upward inflection, no downward inflection. Now, about these 6 steps, these are called vocal variety. Now, I understand some of these things are bound to your personality. But let me tell you this, if you're going to win your audience, I can't stress this enough. If you are going to win your audience, you have to purposefully attend to these 6 vocal variety tips. You have to purposefully change your pace, purposefully change your pitch, purposefully change your inflection, no matter what your internal mode is, no matter what your external circumstance is. You can be internally down in your family matters, you can be internally down with your environment, but if you are going to win your audience, if you are in a teleconferencing and if you are the host, you have to purposefully change your vocal variety. So the word is purposeful. What's the word? I want you to type that word, purposeful. What's that word? Purposeful. The vocal variety should be purposeful. I want you to type that in, purposeful. So you have to be purposeful. Type purposeful in the chat, and I want you to be purposeful in vocal variety. So if you want to be perfect, if you want to achieve your target, if you want to achieve your audience, if you want to win your audience, you have to be purposeful in pace. If you want to be purposeful in your pitch, if you want to be purposeful in your power. And in my presentation for this entire 1 hour, for each word I had been purposeful in my pitch, purposeful in my power, purposeful in my inflection, purposeful in my exaggerations. I have practiced where should I put high pitch, where should I put high power. I have practiced this with my family members. I've practiced this. So if you want to be a star, if you want to win your audience, if you want to get yes to your presentation, if you want to work, if you want to get something done, you have to be purposeful in your vocal variety. Now, having said that, here comes the secret. Now, I understand in Google Hangouts I can't share the sound, but that's okay. This is the point that I was planning to share, how you can project trustworthiness over your presentation slides. Now, remember this. If you want to show trustworthiness to your audience, there are 2 steps. Number 1, your pitch needs to be slightly higher. That's number 1. If you have a naturally low pitch, make it slightly higher during your key message. So slightly higher pitch. That's number 1. Number 2 is that your pitch should be moving around beautifully like a rainbow. So number 1 is pitch should be higher. Number 2 is that your pitch should be moving So you are not talking in monotone. Your prosody should be perfect. You're not talking in monotone. In fact, the research says if you want to be trustworthy, you have to change your tone, go up, go down, go up again. You have to change your tone. You have to change your pitch. You have to move your pitch around, up and down more often. So if you want to project tone, if you want to project trustworthiness, here are the two things. Your voice should be higher in pitch, and your pitch should be moving up and down, right? So if you have found out some person that you have found that you can't trust that person, here are the two things that you do not project trustworthiness. If your voice is mostly flat, if your voice is mostly flat, if your voice is mostly monotone, you're projecting untrustworthiness. So you are inviting your people not to trust you. So if your voice is mostly flat, mostly monotone, your audience is unfortunately not going to trust you. So if you want to project trustworthiness, my friends, you have to make sure that you have a mostly flat tone, so mostly not flat tone, changing tone, and pitch should be moving around. And here's the final most important fact. Your audience is going to be with people who have different types of learning. There are visual type of people, there are auditory type of people, there are kinesthetic type of people. Learn from your audience, whether they are visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, while they are speaking. Here's a trick. Most visual people will say, I see myself, or they will say, I picture, or they will say, let me put into my perspectives. Those are visual people. If you find auditory people, they will say, all right, it sounds good. But they will say, well, I hear you saying, or they say, well, it looks like music to me. Now, if you have kinesthetic people, people who like action, they will say, I got a bad feeling about these figures. Or they will say, I don't feel comfortable about this slide. Or they will say, let me have a handle on this project. Those are kinesthetic people. Now, these three types of people you have to handle separately. If you have visual type of people in your teleconferencing, you have to give more pictures. Sorry about that sound. See, I was talking too much on the tube pan, and he comes. Now, if you have too much auditory people in the audience, if they're talking these words, predicates, you can understand them and talk more, because they are auditory people. They like to learn more through listening. And if you have kinesthetic people, you can learn them by the predicates that they use. Well, use more action, use more typing, use more interaction. So I want you to stress that predicates are going to help you to achieve one thing. Your audience is key, and you are going to achieve your intended purpose. So three things we were talking about. The three things are the predicates, the voice, and the physiology. So what are the three things, my friends? The three things are going to be the predicates, the voice, and the physiology. The predicates, the voice, and the physiology. The predicates, the voice, and the physiology. I want you to type physiology, predicates, and voice. Type what you think you can use immediately. Is it predicates, is it voice, or is it physiology? What do you think is easier for you to achieve in your next presentation? Is it predicates, or is it voice, or is it physiology? Predicates, yeah, Upesha says it's predicates for her. Roshan says voice. Mariam says voice, brilliant. Eranga says physiology, brilliant, thank you. Abdullah says physiology, pretty nice, brilliant. But remember this, if you're going to win your audience, you're talking about the aggregation of all three things on top of energy. So energy is key, and on top of energy, you're going to have predicates, voice, and your body or your physiology. So having said that, the essence of today's presentation is your energy is going to be key. Your energy is going to be the mirror of your audience's energy. So if you want your audience to be active, if you want to win your audience, your energy is number one. And then you have to work on your physiology purposefully. Even though they can't see you, you have to work on your physiology purposefully. And your words, your voice is going to be pretty impressive. It's going to be important. You have to work on your exercise, on your voice, and you have to work on your vocal variety, just like you're purposefully changing your gears. And number 3 is your predicates. You have to learn about your audience by the words that they speak, whether they are kinesthetic people, whether they are reading people, whether they are listening type of people, or whether they are people who like to see visual people. Now, this is what we wanted to achieve, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being here. I know that you have spent some 15 minutes than the time permitted. Thank you very much for being here, for understanding the circumstance and the context. And please make sure that you check in the sheet and give me comments of how this thing went well. And I'm pretty much sure that you are now equipped and ready to rock and roll your next visual presentation, or your next audio presentation, or your next teleconferencing. Whatever the situation is, remember, you are the rocking star. Remember your mantra: audience is key. Having said that, thank you, HR. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Thank you very much for being awesome, for being a rocking audience. And thank you very much for helping me to present this. And thank you very much for being a rocking star in this presentation. Until we meet again, please make sure you buzz me for any questions, for any clarification. And until we meet again, please stay safe and win your next audience. Thank you very much, and cheers for your next teleconferencing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thilina.
Thanks, Thilina. That was awesome.
Guys, please don't forget to mark your attendance in the attendance sheet.